Well, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Business Nigeria. And to our second conversation today, the prices of foodstuff, particularly rice, beans, eggs, have continued to rise ahead of the Christmas and New Year period in the country. Well, this increase in commodity prices ahead of the festive season, rice in particular, have gone beyond the reach of an average Nigerian. In Enugu, like any other state in the Federation, a 50 kg bag of foreign rice is now selling between 140,000 naira and 145,000 naira, depending on the brand, as against 85,000 naira and 92,000 naira price in September. In Lagos, same quantity rather, goes between 80,000 and 95,000 respectively. Really tough figures there. Well, to take a look at this conversation is food security expert and agribusiness coach AfricanFarmer Mogaji. It's good to have you join us on the show. For me personally, right, it's just 50 days to Christmas. I'm even scared to buy foodstuff in the house because we don't even know what would happen, you know, later on when the festive season happens. But talk to us about really the factors that are making the food prices rise. Beans, you can't even talk about beans these days, even if we're talking about rice, and we can't even discuss beans, the price of beans. But help us understand the factors that are driving, you know, these prices.
Well, unfortunately, it's been a very challenging year for farmers, irrespective of the investments that have gone into the space. A lot of investments have gone into the space, irrespective of the insecurity and co-happening in the north. However, the climate has made it very difficult for us to see results. Earlier in the year, the rains did not start early enough. You know, along the line, it stopped. You know, it stopped. It stopped for about 7-8 weeks. And thereafter, again, you know, we began to have heavy rainfall that has brought about the floods. So the whole year, we've had challenges here and there across all regions. So that's primarily responsible for the increase in prices that we're seeing, primarily because no farmer has been able to plan adequately. Even investors also have had challenges because quite a lot of people have lost money this year due to climate changes.
So aside climate factors, what are the factors?
Well, we personally have not seen private sector match government initiatives, okay? So what we've seen, and what I've seen over the years, is the private sector has gotten into a phase I call land helplessness, where they feel we can't do anything, everything is government. And I'm beginning to see, even though that's not what people want to hear, I'm beginning to see, you know, over some time now, the government's will, initiatives out there that private sector can leverage, but they're not leveraging it. And so many a times we're complaining, you know, where as Nigerians, we're anointed analysts and anointed complainers. But when it comes to let's do the job, let's take the risk, let's take a paradigm, we don't do that. We like the status quo. So bottom line is we've been complaining a lot about government, and we have not also shown alternative that government could leverage or work with us on. Yes, we've had challenges with the naira dollar forex thing, because almost everything we use is imported. So that instability also affects, you know, food prices, availability, or especially when it comes to the input, you know. But generally, it's a cocktail of challenges that we are faced with.
Pretty much now it would be difficult to say you're a farmer when you take a look at these challenges and how it affects your business. But are there really solutions, particularly immediate solutions? Now, we know we talk long-term. I know we're going to see the long-term solutions or the long-term results, you know, of government policies later on, right? But are there immediate solutions?
Yes, there are immediate solutions. Beginning of the administration of Mr. President, he did talk about collaboration between the Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Water Resources. Yeah. I've been privileged to be in a meeting where they set up a committee to look at how they can leverage the river basins, especially the floods. You know, after the floods, how do we move into the farm immediately, to be able to, one, reduce the cost of production, because as you're planting into the floodplains, what that does is that you don't need to spend money on power, which is fuel or diesel, to be able to grow. So at least it would drop the price, the production cost. So that's something I've seen moving, and we've seen a very good relationship between both ministers. Yeah, the ministries and the ministers. The minister is different from the ministry. So the two ministers have a good rapport and good relationship. The ministries also have a good handshake. So we only hope that funding will be released to both ministries. Now they have good intentions. They have good relationships. We hope that finance would fund at the right time such that they can go to farm now. Ideally, all the equipment in the river basins ought to have been serviced right now. Okay, so I don't know what that state is. We would look into that next week. But bottom line is, we need all hands on deck. The Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Water Resources will be challenged. They will not be able to perform if they don't get funds released on time. And what I've seen at federal, state level is always funding sometimes is a challenge, getting it at the right time. And so the farmers also don't get the funding at the right time. Eventually, Nigerians pay for it.
It's just 50 days to Christmas, and I know for a lot of households, particularly families, aside the school fees they had to pay, last month, right? One major thing is food. For a lot of Nigerians, eating, for those who eat 3 square meals these days, they have to be having their money, getting their money from somewhere else. And for those who can even afford 2 square meals, for a lot of families, they can't even afford to have 1 meal per day. And if you take a look at government policies, right, I know you said that government has tried to see how 2 ministries, particularly the Ministry of Agriculture and Water Resources, work together to see how they can help farmers, right? But taking a look at some of the factors we've also highlighted, which has to do with insecurity and how it's driving the prices of food, upward. How do you think, right, households can cope with these prices? Is there some kind of stopgap method we can employ because that's what interests the people on the street?
Yes, I'm hoping, and I use the word hoping, I'm hoping that the window that the government opened to allow importation, this is when we really need the foods to come, and I would expect that the food should come before sometime early December so that the prices can go down. But also that's also not sustainable.
Because
on
the question is, wouldn't that affect the farmers who have been trying to get the products from their farms?
For this year, for a few commodities, we're not able to produce enough because of the climate challenges that we've had. So like maize now, we won't be able to produce enough maize. We have to bring it in. We won't be able to produce enough rice because the flood affects rice, affects maize, affects a couple of all those things. So the farmers, I did read the Minister of Agriculture when they were first bringing out that document around opening up a window that the ministry plans to mop up production from the local farmers. So that way, that will not affect the farmers. It keeps them sustainable, and they can have grains in the reserves. So if that happens, as projected, then the farmers also should be smiling to the bank. But however, what affects all these things is the quality of our inputs. Now we need to be focusing more on, and I've always spoken about this, productivity and not production. The quality of our seeds matter now. We may have to import most of the vegetable seeds because we don't have that comparative advantage yet. And so if we're getting higher yield from a smaller land area, then we would be fine. Okay, but if we're not bringing or removing the bottlenecks that affect our seed systems, then there's going to be a bigger challenge next year. But bottom line is, we're still in a place to rejig things, and that is what I think we need to do. We need to engage. We're not engaging youths like we should see it.
How do you mean?
Yeah, I mean the states now. Okay. The states are not engaging the youth in programs that are sustainable, okay? So the average youth in the country who we're trying to bring into the agri sector, the interventions we give to them, you will see 4 bags of fertilizer when they need like 8 bags of fertilizer. The tractor or mechanization is not readily available. It must be holistic for the youth to stay there. Okay, so we're still treating these youths of today like implementing strategies of 30 years ago at the state level. And so we need to improve on that. I've seen a bit, Lagos is a bit ahead of almost everybody in terms of the strategy that they put in place. One of the things I know they're doing is they're opening up lands. You know, when you think of Lagos opening up lands and bringing private sector to engage, to utilize with the youths and co. But that needs to happen at scale, where government just takes care of infrastructure and allows the private sector to come in. That is something we need to really pay attention to. Sustainability of engaging youth in agribusiness. I'm not seeing it at that scale from states.
All most government do is do skills acquisition and all of that stuff.
Empowerment doesn't solve this. You can't just empower them. Sustainability. You must empower them to be sustainable, for them to be able to get married and say, I am a farmer. And one of the things that we've not paid attention also to is if the farmer should put the right costs to the farm produce, many families may not be able to afford it. So logistics, I'm looking forward to next year where we would have each state come out with maybe an agri investment day where they would bring, politicians will bring their friends together, private sector, and say, this is available with each state. These are channels to invest, and we will protect your investment. And that is something that needs to happen very urgent early next year because of the challenges we have.
I think one major takeaway from what you said, for a couple of minutes now is the climate factor affecting agriculture. How do you think we can become climate resilient? Because climate is not climate. Some persons will say it's getting worse by the day.
Yes.
How can we, as a country, become climate resilient? And even for the farmers, how can they be climate resilient?
So bottom line is we need to allow the experts with experience to champion some of these projects, not academic. We use a lot of academic in Nigeria. Now, say almost everything we need to be climate resilient is available. Now, there are some organic and inorganic farm inputs, crop protection that we would use. So take, for instance, if it does not rain for 6 weeks, there are products that you use in the cultivation from the beginning, that if it does not rain for 6 weeks, your crops come out. These are not theories, these are things that we've used for years, but it's not cheap. So these are kind of interventions that the CSR of multinationals, government can come in and well-meaning Nigerians to say, we will fund this so that it can be available to farmers. Because there's nothing globally. Food is expensive across, name the nation. No matter how top-notch they are having challenges with climate change. We are feeling it more because of our systems and our structure. But these things are available in the country. In fact, there's a company that is producing it locally right now that we need to scale. So bottom line is for us to understand and face the reality that this is a challenge, and the old mindset, the old ways of doing things will not get us to the promised land.
It has to give way for technology.
Yeah, technology.
Food security expert and agribusiness, AfricanFarmer Mogaji, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're still watching Business Nigeria. We'll take a moment and then return with all the stories. To stay with us.